The war game was supposed to be a formality. That was how Commander Vethal of the Galactic Union Defense Corps had described it to his adjutant, a routine joint exercise designed to evaluate newly admitted species before assigning them to frontier patrol duties. A formality. The humans had been members of the Union for exactly 14 months, and the prevailing consensus among senior military staff was that they were soft-bodied, short-lived, bodied, and almost certainly useless in a real engagement. Still, protocol demanded the exercise. And so, on the volcanic plains of Korath 4, 400 soldiers from 8 different species gathered to watch humanity's finest embarrass themselves. The setup was simple. A mixed human squad of 12 would be inserted into a dense urban combat simulation, crumbling towers, smoke corridors, sensor blind spots, and tasked with neutralizing a 40-strong opposing force drawn from the Union's most decorated units. The Drath, armored insectoids with compound vision capable of tracking movement at 300 meters. The Vreth, bipedal apex predators with echolocation sharp enough to hear a heartbeat through a wall. And the Quarren, a species whose neural architecture allowed them to share tactical data across a hive link without any communication device. 40 against 12. The humans would last maybe 9 minutes, according to the Union's combat modeling software. Vethal had given them 10, out of generosity. The laughter started early. In the observation gallery above the simulation field, officers from a dozen Union worlds watched the opening feed. The human squad had entered from the eastern corridor, all 12 of them, and immediately 11 of them had peeled off into standard defensive positions. Textbook. Predictable. Are, 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 are. The Drath wing was already triangulating, but one human had not moved with the others. Sergeant First Class Haruki Mori had simply stopped. He stood at the mouth of the eastern corridor for exactly 4 seconds, head slightly tilted, eyes moving slowly across the terrain. Then he stepped backward into the shadow of a collapsed archway and was gone. Where did the small one go? A Quarren officer asked, genuinely puzzled. The sensor technician, a veteran Vreth with 17 years of field experience, zoomed the tracking feed. The human's biosign had not vanished. It had simply become extraordinarily difficult to isolate. The man was moving through the rubble in a way that made the sensors stutter. Low, slow, broken rhythm. He changed his pace every third step in a pattern that seemed almost random until you stared at it long enough to realize it was not random at all. It was precisely calibrated to match the ambient vibration frequency of the crumbling structure around him. He is hiding, another officer said. Vethal made a dismissive clicking sound with his mandibles. Hiding does not win engagements. 3 minutes later, the first Drath unit went silent. There was no sound, no alert, no shot fired. One moment, a Drath fire team of 4 was advancing along the northern corridor, compound eyes sweeping, weapons hot. The next, the rearmost soldier simply crumpled. His biosign flatlined before the sensor team had even registered an anomaly. The remaining 3 spun immediately, instinct screaming, and the second one dropped. Still, no sound, no visible projectile, no thermal bloom. Contact, contact, northern. The third Drath managed half a sentence before he too went still. The fourth ran. He was the smart one. He sprinted south, activated his hive link to flood the Quarren network with a contact alert, and put 40 meters between himself and whatever had just erased his team. He made it 52 meters before he stopped moving. The observation gallery had gone quiet. Vethal leaned forward in his seat. He rewound the tracking feed, played it at quarter speed, played it again. The human Sergeant Mori appeared in the footage for exactly 1.3 seconds of combined visible time across the entire 4-kill sequence. The rest was inference. A shadow, a shift in the way dust fell between broken pillars, an absence where a presence should have been. That is not a standard engagement technique, the Vreth sensor technician said slowly. No, said Vethal. It is not. By minute 7, 11 of the opposing 40 had been neutralized, all by the same human, all without a single alarm successfully transmitted. The Quarren hive link, which should have been the team's greatest tactical asset, had instead become a liability every time a soldier registered confusion or a half-formed contact warning. Mori had already moved. He seemed to anticipate the network's communication lag and exploit it with surgical precision, hitting units in the window between when they detected something and when they could relay it to their allies. The other 11 humans were doing their part, holding corridors, drawing attention, bleeding the enemy's numerical advantage through honest attrition. They were competent, brave even, but they were the distraction. Mori was the weapon. At minute 11, 2 minutes passed, Bethal's generous estimate, the exercise concluded. The opposing forces command unit, a Quarren hive node set up in the simulation's center tower, ceased transmitting. Mori had located it through a method the post-exercise analysis team spent 6 hours trying to reconstruct. He had tracked the micro-fluctuations in the building's electrical grid caused by the hive node's power draw, cross-referenced them with the acoustic profile of Quarren neural resonance, a sound entirely outside normal hearing ranges, which meant nothing to a human unless, apparently, that human had spent 11 years training to detect exactly that kind of signature and climbed the building's exterior in near-total darkness using handholds that the structural assessment team confirmed should not have been sufficient to bear his weight. He had entered through a ventilation shaft. He had not made a sound. After the exercise, Commander Vethal did something he had not done in 22 years of military service. He walked onto the field himself to speak with an enlisted soldier. Sergeant Mori was sitting on a chunk of broken concrete, eating something from a small foil pouch. He was shorter than Vethal had expected, lean, unremarkable in nearly every physical dimension. He looked up when the commander approached and set his food aside. "Sergeant," Vethal said. He did not know exactly what he had intended to ask. He settled on, "What are you?" The human considered the question without any apparent offense. "Soldier," Mori said. "13th generation. That technique, the movement, the concealment, our sensor arrays are calibrated for every known combat species in the Union. They wouldn't be calibrated for this one." Mori said simply, "It's old. Older than your Union, probably. We've been refining it for about 1,000 years." He paused. "Give or take." Vethal was quiet for a long moment. In the gallery above, he could see his officers still reviewing the footage. Some were arguing. Some were not speaking at all. 1,000 years, he repeated. "My family's been practicing it for about 400 of those," Mori said. "My grandfather trained my father. My father trained me. Before that," he shrugged, "the records get complicated." Vethal looked at the destroyed simulation field. 40 decorated soldiers. The Union's best. Unquote. And this one small human had moved through them like smoke through a cracked window, leaving stillness in his wake. "We laughed," Vethal said. He was not a being who admitted fault easily, but the words felt necessary. "When your world applied for defense status, we laughed at your assessments, your physical metrics, your lifespan." Mori nodded slowly. He did not seem angry. He picked up his foil pouch again. "I know," he said. "We're used to it." "That does not bother you?" The human looked up at him, and there was something in his expression that Vethal found difficult to categorize. Not arrogance, not resentment, something quieter and considerably more unsettling. "We don't need you to believe in us," Mori said. "We just need you to put us on the field." He finished his meal. Around them, the dust of Korath IV drifted down in thin, pale curtains. In the gallery, Vethal's adjutant was already compiling the after-action report. It would recommend, in the strongest possible terms, that all combat modeling software pertaining to human soldiers be suspended pending complete re-evaluation. Vethal had already decided he would approve that recommendation. He would also, he decided, personally ensure that Sergeant First Class Haruki Mori was assigned to the frontier. Not because the frontier needed a soldier, because whatever was out there in the dark needed to know that humanity had already been practicing for it. For 1,000 years, give or take.